sailors, Philip Winter here, General Manager at Navigare Yachting. Love to welcome you to the webinar that has been the most anticipated webinar that we've done on cruising in the Abacos post-Dorian. So I want to thank all of you for registering, and all of you that asked questions. Thank you so much. We're going to try and get all of those answered. If you didn't have time to ask a question but have thought of something now or think of something during the webinar, find the chat button right now. You can type in questions and we'll try to get to those too. We're going to try and limit this to 30 minutes. We tend to go over a little bit, but and I know we have some good questions. A couple of news items for the industry. As you may have heard, the BVI announced that they are opening their borders beginning December 1st, 2020. So we're going to be ready to greet you at our new home. We're now based out of Nanny Key Resort and Marina. Really the premier location in the British Virgin Islands. We're super excited about that. Some other companies were reducing. Our fleet has been growing and growing in the Virgin Islands. So we're very excited to welcome you at what we feel is the prime location in the British Virgin Islands. For the Bahamas, as of November 1st, there will be no more quarantine requirements. So you will need to take a COVID test. We'll talk about that a little bit later. You probably know that Navigare Yachting is opening our base in Marsh Harbor on December 1st. So that brings us right to the topic of this webinar. So I'm guessing that a lot of you sailors out there that have gone into foreign ports, if you're like me, you've devoured the cruising guides of the area that you want to sail. So me personally, much of my cruising was done pre-GPS. So the information in the cruising guides, even back then, was absolutely critical and made my trips much more enjoyable and certainly a lot more stress-free. The cruising guides today, as you will see when you pick up a copy of this cruising guide, are full of much more information. So if you have cruised the Abaco, you've probably seen the cruising guide to Abaco. It's now in its 31st edition, and we are most fortunate to have Steve Dodge, the author of the guide, and his family with us today. Steve began cruising in the Abaco Islands in the early 70s. I know we have Jon with us, who's currently in White Sound on Elbow Key, and I think Jeff is popping in. And if I remember correctly, in talks with Steve, Jeff was just a year old. I think he celebrated his first birthday in the Bahamas on that cruise. So really want to thank Steve and family, really appreciate it. And obviously there's been a big impact with Dorian. And for those of you that don't know, a major hurricane hit the Abacos, Grand Bahama, and was pretty devastating. So we have a lot of people who are listening to this webinar and are thirsty for information on the must-see places, the must-do activities in the Abacos, and on top of that, they're really thirsty for knowledge about the state of the Abaco post-Dorian. And we've actually had a lot of people asking what they can do to help the locals. And for us, of course, it's important. We're glad to be the first major charter company going back into Marsh Harbor. But first question, Steve, is anything open in the Abacos?
Yes, a lot of things are open in Abaco. You asked, I looked specifically into grocery stores. Every inhabited island has at least 1 or 2 grocery stores, has 1, 2, 3, or 4 bars and restaurants, and many hardworking, friendly people who are eager to greet visitors.
Yeah, great. That's what the word on the street is, and we're very excited about that. So to help come to the islands, and spend some time, spend some money, help out the locals rebuild after the utter devastation. You may notice in the background on John's camera, you'll see a ladder. He's actually, like everybody, rebuilding the home. So for new sailors to the Abacos, in general, what do the sailors need to know?
It's just a great place to sail. It is, the Sea of Abaco is in between Great Abaco Island to the southwest and a string of offshore keys on the northwest. The Sea of Abaco is about 10 to 15 to 20 feet deep. There are keys along the side as well as the barrier reef. Barrier reef is one of the longest in the world.
Wow, and I would highly recommend, I'm fortunate enough to have spent just about 3 years in the Bahamas, and definitely want to be snorkeling or diving in the Bahamas. The water, I believe, is reported to be the clearest water anywhere on the planet. So for those that have never been sailing in this part of the world, can you talk about maybe a sample itinerary, and then as we go through the itinerary, maybe talk about those islands and keys? And what I'm going to do is share a screen with, frankly, a Google map and maybe we can move along, and let me share that. You can talk about an itinerary.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, well, can you, all right, this is Abaco. It's on Little Bahama Bank. These are banks which rise up from deep ocean water to very shallow areas, and with some of the land protruding from the shallow waters. You can see the drop off here in the upper right to deep ocean water. You see Great Abaco Island stretching in an odd shape rather, with offlying keys, and beyond that a barrier reef. Marsh Harbor is showing on the screen, and you would, if you leave Marsh Harbor on an itinerary, you would probably go to either Man of War Key, which is there in the upper right, or Elbow Key, Hopetown. Right. Hopetown is a fully enclosed harbor. There are mooring balls available. The Hopetown Lighthouse, Elbow Reef Lighthouse, was built in 1863. It's the last one in the world, which has a Fresnel lens rotating on a bath of mercury, wound up every night, a couple of times. Beautiful little town, nice ocean beach on the Atlantic side. Man of War Key, a little bit to the northwest. Again, 2 fully protected harbors. Community of boat builders. Very religious people, no bars, a man of war. So bring your own. So Hopetown or Man of War Key is a good first stop. And then if you were going to the northwest, Great Guana Key, it's the next inhabited island. There's a main harbor a little bit to the southeast of where the pointer is now. That's it right there. There's a small community there. But I don't know what's open at Guana Key at this point, but you know, things are opening all the time. Every week in Abaco now as they rebuild after the hurricane. Okay, if we can zoom out a little bit now, if you're heading further north, you see that there's a sandbar between Whale Key and Treasure Key at Point on the lower left. And that sandbar is something you don't really want to go over in the boat. So Whale Key is the one place where you will be advised to go outside and around Whale Key. And we have waypoints for that that make the passage pretty simple. Once you're inside, now you do have to pick your day to do that. You don't want to do that on a day that it's blowing 30 from the north or northeast. The next stop to the north could be northwest rather, Green Turtle Key, where there are two good harbors and a couple of marginal ones. Black Sound is that first one to the right of the pointer. And then White Sound, Green Turtle, and I live at White Sound and Elbow Key, so there are two White Sounds in Abaco. That's White Sound, Green Turtle. Green Turtle Club is open. Their docks were not destroyed in the hurricane. I'm uncertain about the rest of it. Bluff House took a pretty hard hit in the hurricane, and there should be mooring balls in White Sound.
Yeah, Green Turtle Club just announced today that they're also going to start having customs there the beginning of November, and they'll also be doing COVID testing, which is required after the 5 days. You know, you do the one when you arrive and then the 5 days, and they are going to be able to do that. They expect to be up and running November 1st with that. So.
Okay. If we're proceeding northwest, there's immediately to the northwest of Green Turtle is Munjack and Crab Keys. That's still, yeah, that's it. It's uninhabited. I think there's a single house on it now. But there's no community there. You can be all by yourself. Good dinghy exploration in the mangrove areas inside the key there in Munjack. Moving further north, there's Powell Key, also uninhabited, beautiful beach there on the southern part, and a good anchorage in the crook there that you can see. There's a high bluff there, and that spot without a beach just to the left of Powell Key, maybe. Yes. A nice high bluff, you can walk up there and get a good view and good beaches. Okay, and you can go further north from Powell. And that's Spanish Key. And John told me just before this, you just flew over Spanish Key a few days ago, and the docks are still there, right, John?
Yeah, there were some boats there, so they're all up, and I knew they were up and running, so.
Okay, good. And from there, it's pretty much when you want to probably start heading back south or southeast.
And Steve, sailing up, you mentioned going outside of Whale Key. What do you need to look out for in this area, the rest of the way up to Spanish Key?
Well, you can see clearly some of the shoal areas there. And our charts, the cruising guide, have depths over those areas. But for the most part, once you get north of Green Turtle, most large boats will move over alongside Great Abaco Island and go up along that side. And then when you get to a place you want to go, just head over to the northwest to get into those areas, into those
Northeast.
keys.
So that's the great thing about the cruising guide, of course. It's got every bit of this in minute detail. And so if you haven't seen the cruising guide, it has absolutely everything from tide tables to charts, pictures, diagrams, all the local knowledge you could possibly imagine. So if you get back into this area and you want to be a little more adventurous and head down towards Little Harbor, is that pretty common?
Sure, yes. It's easy. There's a few rocks and some coral areas going south and some shoals, but it's pretty easy to get through there and go to Little Harbor. Little Harbor was first settled by an artist, a sculptor, and he went there in the late 40s, early 50s, Randolph Johnston, and set up shop there. He died a few years ago. His son Pete now does lost wax casting in bronze, and right pretty much on the beach. He has a pub there, and he has mooring balls in the harbor, good docks, a good place to visit.
Wow, tremendous. I have to tell you, Steve, reading through the guide, again, I mentioned I had spent quite some time in the Bahamas, but I learned more about history. I learned so much just reading the guide, and I can't tell you how eager I am to now put the guide back to life.
Okay.
So what other, are there other areas that are common, or is that, are these the most common areas?
I think those are the most common areas. John, you have anything to add? What we've covered?
I mean, as far as common areas, those are the main ones. And as far as people stop when uninhabited and the settlements, there are, of course, tons of other keys, and people stop along the way at the Pelicans or Ledyard, which is north of Little Harbor there, and then other areas going up north as well that we went by. Like I guess we mentioned No Name, right? No Name Key, they actually opened a restaurant on just before the storm, and I was up there back in January, and they were rebuilding it. They were just putting the sign back up when we were there. I haven't been back up by boat this trip, but I don't know what they're doing with everything. Of course, coronavirus has slowed things down on top of the storm. So, but they were putting everything back together, and that's the only thing on that island. So they were, of course, traveling there just to get everything back up and running. So get open for business. As far as other stuff like after the storm, the navigation is still pretty straightforward. We've updated the guide with a few things. There's some channel markers missing, but again, there's some in place that, and most of the ones that are necessary have been replaced, so people can tell where they need to go. There's a couple that they haven't got to, of course, and there's some that are off, like in the shallows, that are pushed over that you can see. There's one of the other things that's right now, I don't know how long it'll be like that, but there's some floats, life jackets, and whatever they can find tied in some various places in between Great Abaco and the Keys. And those are actually tied to power lines right now that are underwater, and BPL has those marked with whatever they could find in the boat so that they can do more investigation about them, and I think some repairs too, or some of them are marked for. So that's what some of those that look kind of random out there in the middle of nowhere right now is what they are. So.
Oh, great! The old Clorox bottle floats, and that brings up another question. What about infrastructure? Is electricity up? Is there water?
Yeah, the electricity has been a little, it's wherever they can get it, but most islands are back up, at least in a limited capacity right now. For instance, where I am right now on Elbow Key, we were one of the kind of last inhabited keys to get power back. Green Turtle had it much sooner. It came on, I was here in June, I think it was the middle of June, where they started hooking up places. It's still slow going. They normally run the power over from Great Abaco to the outlying keys, and because they do have problems with underwater cables and mostly where they come up along shore, but some out in the middle of the sound as well, they have put big generators on the outer keys and are feeding it that way. But they are working on that and continuing to work on the underground cables as well, or underwater cables. So,
Okay.
water, of course, in the outer keys is all, there's no groundwater, it's cistern, so people have power, they have water, they pump it up, so from the cistern tanks. So, and Marsh Harbor does have their water back on as well. So.
Yeah, Marsh Harbor doesn't, I don't believe these are the most current photos, but this is where the Navigare base is going to be, the Conch Inn. And just a few steps away is Right Way and Maxwell's, a couple of grocery stores. Even closer is a liquor store, for those of you that were wondering about that. So it really, things are back.
Jimmy's is owned by the Sands Brewery, which was, they operate out of Freeport. They were shut down, and that's manager, I think his name is Jerry, and I saw him last week, and they were supposed to get Sands in last Friday. So.
Oh, fantastic. That's wonderful. We get a lot of questions about mooring balls. I think you had mentioned some. I just got a recent report that there are about a dozen mooring balls in Man-O-War Key, but that makes me think of something Steve once told me.
One of the great things about sailing in Abaco is, compared really to the BVI, is in Abaco, you can anchor any place. You can anchor right in the middle of the Sea of Abaco if you want to. You can stay overnight there if you wanted to. Better have your lights on. But the water is 5 to 20 feet deep throughout the Sea of Abaco. You can see the bottom in most places. It's sandy and some of it's grassy, but it's simple anchoring there compared to the experiences that I had in the BVI before I went to Abaco.
Oh, great. We've been getting a lot of questions about, actually, I'm gonna stop the share here. We've been getting a lot of questions about how do you get into the Bahamas? First of all, you can sail into the West End on Freeport. I'm answering some questions as we go here, by the way, and or fly right into Marsh Harbor, fly into Nassau, and then to Marsh Harbor. Lots of flights from big hubs like Atlanta and Charlotte, and then there's puddle jumpers flying from lots of places in Florida. So, or you can do just what Steve and Jeff and John do and fly your own plane over. It's really close. But what happens when you get there? What are the COVID test requirements? Let me give a little bit of an answer. And this is the current information, although John did give us some breaking news about Green Turtle Key. You do need to take a PCR COVID test within 7 days of your arrival. So you'll need to take that. There's lots of 24-hour and even 6-hour PCR COVID tests sites available. You fly in. If you fly in on American out of Miami, they'll actually test you also at the airport, so you don't need to take a test when you arrive in the Bahamas, but you'll need to take another test when you arrive, and then you'll take a test if you're staying 5 days or more. So on after the 4th night, you'll need to take another test. Test sites are available in Marsh Harbor. We just found out about Green Turtle Key, and we hope to have more sites announced as we move forward. We have, let me go through a couple of other questions. Oh, I love you guys. This is from Kim. Is there a volunteer organization you can recommend for the days before or after our June charter?
Hey, John, can you do that?
Yeah, I don't, I'm sure there would be some for short term. Lots of the volunteer stuff they have going on has been longer term that I'm aware of. Because they actually have it fairly organized, but they kind of have crews that are set up that are they work together and do their thing. So I don't know. I'm not real familiar with. I'm sure there's something to do with just a couple days, but normally what I'm more familiar with, because I guess I've seen the people that've been here for an extended period of time doing volunteer work and stuff in houses. Unfortunately, I'm not real familiar with the short-term side of that.
Okay, there's this one guy I know who knows a lot about that. His name is Mr. Google, and it's been changing. And I do have I know of some organizations that really went in early, and I believe some of them have wound down. We'll get back to you on that though. So. Do we supply the cruising guide with our boats? Yes, there will be a copy of the cruising guide on the boat. Love to have you guys get one in advance so you can plan your trip a little bit better. What's the state of the airport? John, you were just there.
Yeah, no, it's pretty good actually. I mean, they had issues with water with the storm, and of course wind as well, but they have everything cleaned up, and there's really, it's running pretty smoothly. There's really no issues there. So people who, you mentioned Philip flying in yourself, they had opened a control tower just a couple years ago, I guess, and that is still non-functional. So it is just too tough for anybody to be flying in. You just talk on the radio yourself. So there's no control tower to check in with right now.
Fantastic. We're bringing in mostly catamarans. Well, actually, all catamarans to begin with fairly shallow drafts. We have a question from Bill about coming in with a sailboat with a 6-foot draft. What limitations will Bill run into?
The 6-foot draft is a little limiting, but doable. I actually have a friend from home, and he's got a Beneteau that draws 6 feet, and I've run it around here a bit. So you just have to kind of be aware of where you are. We do show all that on our charts where you've got, to stay in the deep enough water for that draft. We also had, there's a guy who operates out of here who, I can't remember what Barcelona Explorer draws. You remember, Dad? I think it's like
8 or 9, I think.
Yeah. And he finds his way around. Now that's pretty challenging, but he does it. So he goes around and he draws quite a bit. We actually have a section in the back of the cruising guide too that Robbie put together, kind of his routes that he uses for that boat. So if you're in a really deep draft boat, you can get an idea of where you can go looking at those pages as well. Oh,
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I was about to bring it up if you didn't. So again, all of that's in the cruising guide. We have a great question, distances, and let me go back to the map, and I'll let you talk about some of the distances. So here we are at our base in Marsh Harbor. Over to Man of War Key.
Probably about 7 or 8 miles.
Okay.
Or less, yeah.
Yeah. So with good wind, a little over an hour. So it's a very short piece, fairly similar to Hopetown, maybe just a tiny bit more.
Yes.
So that will give you an idea. And again, I'm going to go back to the cruising guide. It has sections that have distances, compass bearings, absolutely everything in it. And I don't mean to be having this be a full pitch for the cruising guide. I'm just super excited about it myself.
It's okay with us.
So from Marsh Harbor to Green Turtle, what are we looking at?
In terms of
I always
miles,
have 20 in my head, but I think it's less than 20 miles. So
yeah. So yeah, it's really nice, easy sails. That's why some people will choose to head down to Little Harbor and then from Hopetown, and they'll do a long day sail downwind all the way to Spanish Key out at kind of the end, and then poke their way back a little more upwind or close reached. Hope that answered the question. Let's see. And I'm sorry. We got an address, and can you send me the cursing guide? It does say cursing. So Friday night, about 11 p.m., I will be a good representative of that. So Marilyn will get back with you. Thanks, Kim. And is Pete's Pub open?
yes, it is.
Yes. All right.
Yeah, they opened up early. They had very little damage there. I haven't been there again this trip, but I was there back in January and several times earlier this year. So they've been open for business for a while now.
Yeah. How is the occupancy rate of moorings in general? And a couple of things. First, there's just about nobody cruising in the islands right now. So again, we're the first major charter company open. So it's going to be free reign on the mooring balls. But the rest of the question is it okay to anchor? And Steve is a big proponent of anchoring in super shallow water, sandy bottom. Doesn't get any easier than that.
Right. It's very simple, and if you expect a front coming through, which can happen at cool front in January, February, March, you put up another anchor off to the northwest and go to sleep.
Great. We have a question from Monica about getting into Man of War in a 42 to 44 foot catamaran. So we're looking at about a 4.5, less than 5 foot draft.
Right. No problem getting into Man of War for that. It's just that the opening between that you need to enter is very narrow. So before jumping right into it, you want to look for, I've always looked for mass coming out before I head in. And if I see a mast or two headed toward the entrance, I hang back and wait until the boats coming out have cleared.
Yeah. So we have a question. Do they recognize COVID tests from Canada? They're bringing in people from all around the world. So I would assume as long as it's a PCR test, and there's lots of information on the travel.bahamas.bs, I think, or travel.bahamas.com or gov. There's a lot of information, all of the up-to-date information, except for the answer to Robert's question about the cost of the health visa. So when you take your PCR test before you leave, You'll download it in the travel health visa. The cost of that visa, I don't know the cost. I don't believe it's very much, but it does include the 2 additional COVID tests. Let's see, we're just about out of time. How about diesel fuel? Is it readily available?
Yeah, the fuel really isn't a problem anymore. It was early on, right after the storm, but it's been, places have been continuing to come online. I think Boat Harbor started selling it in June. There are some limited hours still at some places like Lighthouse Marina in Hopetown always has fuel, but they are open Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. So you do have to know what time they're open, but you can pretty much work around that pretty easily. So, and up farther north too, it's kind of the same. It evolves and changes, so I don't know exactly, but I do know that they have fuel readily available. So.
Yeah, great. I wish we had lots of time. I am seeing lots of questions about this mysterious cursing guide. But this one also includes a question about electronic charts. Do you want to give us a little update? Because I have read the cruising guide and I know the answer.
This is my other son, Jeff.
Hi there. Yeah, we do actually have a BSB version of all of the charts in the cruising guide. That's the standard version of the cruising guide. A standard version of nautical charts, most applications on the PC. What I'm familiar with is Cruising Navigator. There's also an app called Open Captain, Open CPN, that will read those charts. So they're available from our website, and you can do an instant download of it. It's a zip file with all of those charts in them. And that's in fact actually what we use to validate our charts now. So Marine Navigator on an Android device, and we're out there looking at where it shows us and where the islands are.
Fantastic. I will, since I made a comment about travel.bahamas.gov or BS or com, I think we're going to have to add it to this recording. And everybody who subscribed to this recording is going to get a link to the recording. We'll add that as well as a couple of topics a couple of last points I'd like to make. Steve, how'd you get the idea to write the cruising guide?
John and I were alone in I think my mom was there then, in our little house at White Sound on Elbow Key. And we had about a week. Marjorie and Jeff were back in the States. They were in public school at that time, and John and I were both on a college schedule. So John said, Dad, let's do that cruising guide that you've talked about. You've complained about all the cruising guides that are out there. And I had, because they still showed marinas that had burned down 3 or 4 years before in some cases. So I said, oh, John, let's just have a good time. Let's have fun. And so John opened up another can of beer for me, I think. And by the time we got to the third, I said, yes, we'll do it. We'll do the cruising guide. So the next morning, I got up early. I went down to the sailboat and I pulled off the hand-bearing compass. And I went down to a place where a friend was building a marina at that time and got a long stick and marked it in 1-foot intervals. And that morning we headed out for Little Harbor, and that's how we started.
Wow, awesome. That's incredible. So what we've had it looks like half the questions we've been asked is, how do we get a hold of the cruising guide? What's the best way?
www.wspress.com. It's White Sound Press, which is named after the location of our house on Elbow Key, which is at White Sound.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I hope all of you listening are as excited as I am about getting out and cruising in the Abacos and supporting the community after Dorian. And as registered participants, if you're looking to, you're going to get a copy of this webinar. And if you want to charter with Navigare Yachting, please visit our website at navigare-yachting.com. And we'd love to get you out on one of our, almost all of our catamarans are between, I think our oldest is from 2018. So they're all virtually brand new catamarans. Some of you might be interested in actually buying a boat and placing it in charter, and for the revenue, the tax advantages, to be able to sail at our bases in the US, Virgin Islands, Bahamas, Thailand, all through Europe, Seychelles. So we'd love to talk to you about that. Make sure to pick up your cruising guide and start planning your trip now. And a special wish for Marjorie and Steve, John, Jeff, and everybody listening. Thank you so much. We're very glad you were with us today.
Thank you very much.